Hi, everyone, and welcome to Go Ahead Tell Me. My name is Carly, and today I'm here with Rossy, our producer and creator, as well as host of Delaquentame. We came together last month to discuss the exciting things coming in season 3, including the importance of taking care of our emotional health. We're back today to continue this discussion and share our different perspectives on that topic of emotional health. Rossy, I'm so excited that we're back together today. We've both talked about how we've handled our emotions differently, and I think we both have really important perspectives on this topic that stem from our different backgrounds.
Yes, hi Carly. I am so happy we're beginning with this episodes on cross-generational talks. And what I'm hoping is that we can bring new ways or ideas on how to build on having good conversations among different generations. And in this case, you and me, different cultures. So I'm so excited.
Me too. So these conversations between people of different generations, we've both talked about how it's really important to both of us. But I was kind of hoping you'd explain a bit more about what it means to you to have conversations like this, because I know it is something that has been really important to you.
It is. It is very important. And since you did an intro also, I just wanted to say why you are the leader in Go Ahead Tell Me, and you're the host, and you produce this. Carly, as you all know, because you have been listening to her, her studies are in film and cinema. And right now she's studying her master's. She's doing her master on strategic communications. So that's why, and not just that, her attitude is she really deserves a prize because she's really great.
Oh,
Is a
thank
really
you.
great person to work with. So that's why she's our leader in the podcast. Go ahead, tell me.
Oh, thank you, Rossy. You're amazing to work with as well.
And every time we talk, I know we like for this episode, I was thinking, you know what? The last episode, yes, we say what we were gonna talk about, and one of the things is that I'm gonna have a psychologist in my Spanish episode. We both, Carly has 2 episodes, and I have 2. I'm gonna have every month a psychologist explaining, obviously, because I have mentioned that I studied psychology, but it's just media psychology, analysis, research, but expert people who are working on this and how they can help us. So I'm going to have a psychologist. And then we said, okay, we're going to have another person, and you can go and listen to last episode, the episode with Judah Ray. He's a filmmaker here in LA, and he's great. Carly did the
Mhm.
interview, and oh my God, he's one of the person that we can have as an example of why we're doing this change on not just talking about success, but how people are taking care of their emotions, emotional, mental health when they are achieving success. So that's the interview that we have. Then we have these cross-generational talks that in this case is me with Carly with me, and then she is going to have other guests. But Carly, you asked why is it so important? I have seen, and I don't know if you noticed, but no, during the pandemic, I think, and I haven't done the research exactly, but the stress levels have been, gone up really high,
Oh, yeah.
but for everyone, and it doesn't matter what age. But before that, and I think we mentioned it before because it is a fact, and it's not an insult. It's really the way, unfortunately, the younger generation, maybe it's Generation Z, that have been they've been raised by technology and different type of things that they are called the stress generation. So on top of that, all of these generations that we're living together, cross generation, intergeneration, we had to live a pandemic. And that's historic. That doesn't happen every decade. So it's been tough, and we all have been dealing with that differently, obviously. So for me, it's really important because of who I am. Like Diego, one of our guests for other seasons, he always said, I'm an expert in my story because that's what I know. And it's the same with you, with me, and with everyone. So that's
Mhm.
what I wanted. I wanted to share, that one of our project and my passion is to show different realities. And because we have different realities in our world, then is when I think we need to do this type of talks so we can try to understand both parts, not just one part. Like older generations understand younger generation, but also younger generations understand older generations, right?
Right. That's so important. And I think that's something that I love about our partnership working together is our different perspectives. And I feel like we bounce off each other really well. And like we ask each other for advice and perspectives on different things. And I think it helps that we have these different generational backgrounds through this process.
Yes, yes, and I think even within a relationship, it can be, you know, a husband and wife, or mother and daughter, or mother and son. They live a reality, but imagine in a house, a mother is raising two boys or three boys, and each of them is living a different reality, not just because of the age difference. Maybe one is in the university, the other one is in elementary, and the mother, maybe a single mother, or she has a husband, they are living different realities. So
Mhm.
maybe that family is understanding, no, maybe generally, usually that family is understanding life differently, even
Mhm.
though if they go to a Catholic church, or a, you know, Christian, they go to church and they do many things together. Those four people or five people are not gonna be understanding life the same way,
Mhm.
because, you know, they go to work, they go to schools, and they have other peers that they, you know, they deal with. So the understanding of that reality is what I really would like to discuss, mostly because I've heard a lot these things about, again, blaming other generations. Or, and I'm gonna just bring an example. There's a thing called toxic positivity, and I don't know if you can tell me what you understand by that term.
Um, I'm not too familiar with the term, but I would assume it's like just being so positive that you can't see the reality of a situation or even the negatives of a situation.
Yes, yes, it's something like that. And I just wanted, and I didn't, you know, we didn't mention this before, but I even have something to read about that. I'm gonna just say toxic relationship. There's another
Hmm.
thing about that, right? Okay, this is a toxic relationship, but I think what I believe is that we have to focus on ourselves, and we, like Judah said it again. You please listen to Judah's episode that Carly did a great interview. He could have been blaming his father. He was an alcoholic father, or her mother. I mean, his mother was a very religious person, but it was until he realized that it was him, the person that he needed to focus on, is when he really grew, like personally. So
Hmm.
toxic relationship, that even in APA, well, the psychology, I go again to psychology. There are some people, I've been working on production, but I've been studying psychology and production. So I think I mentioned to you, I didn't study math or engineering or medicine. What I study is how to do research about human behavior. And
Hmm.
that's something that I am passionate about, just to affect in a positive way. So when I started to hear this, that's a toxic relationship, family, and so it's like, okay, let me see. And there were definitions that, as all definitions are invented, created, some are approved, and, you know, academically, and they are, but at the end, again, toxic positivity, for example, there are people who say, I am a very positive person. Rossy Eguigure is very positive. I wasn't positive maybe when I was born, or maybe when, but I have always tried to look at the, you know, at the good side, or being busy, but that doesn't mean that I haven't suffered or struggled in my life of that I deny. So when I
Hmm.
found out the definition, for me, it's really important, because it's like you said, toxic positivity imposes positive thinking as the only solution to problems,
Hmm.
demanding that a person avoid negative thinking or expressing negative emotions. And obviously, that's not what it is. And it continues. And this is knowing, I didn't, I'm sorry that I didn't, always like to quote who say this, but it's a research. And it says the research around positive thinking generally, positive thinking, not toxic positivity, positive thinking generally focuses on the benefits of having an optimistic outlook when experiencing a problem. And by the way, that's what I do. I have a problem, but then I had to look the optimistic side. Toxic positivity, by contrast, demands positivity from people regardless of the challenges that they face, potentially silencing their emotions and from seeking social support. And that's no, I just hope, and I brought up this term just to understand that many times positive people are not toxic positive people. They are just optimistic people, but many times they are. I understand there are not we, as I said, different reality. We all see things differently, and I have to stop, Carly. Because if not, I don't stop.
Well, I wanted to bring up actually when you talked about the example of a family with multiple children and different age groups, and how while they're living under the same roof, it's all very different realities. And it made me think of my own family, because my family, I'm the youngest of four. But my siblings, so my oldest sibling just turned 41, and then the next one's 40, and then the one after that is in his early 30s, and then there's me in my like late 20s now. So we had very different childhoods, because we're all
Yeah,
from we're there's such a big gap between all of us.
yeah,
um and it's interesting to think about like the different perspectives I have versus what my brothers or my sister have. Like I
definitely.
talked to my sister, who's the oldest one, and we have very different views on a lot of things.
Yeah,
Um, and it's always a really interesting conversation, because I feel like we're always learning from each other. She's very into politics and everything, and she always has
mm,
a really different perspective on things that I never thought about before. But the
yeah,
other thing that's interesting with her is that her and I both have had similar um, experiences with our parents,
uh,
and we have both handled them completely differently. She has had such a different emotional reaction than I have had. Whereas I feel like she's had a little bit more of like a sadness around it, where I've felt a little bit more of anger. Um,
mhm.
but I've been the one to like seek out therapy, whereas she's been a little bit more opposed to it. So just that small difference, but the same family. And we've lived both very different perspectives on these things. Um,
Yeah, what
and
a great example. No, I'm sorry, continue.
Oh, no worries, no. And then I also have my brother, he's the second oldest, and just a conversation I thought of while you were talking about this is, it was last year, I think we were talking about one of his daughters and a struggle that she had had, and both of us had such different ideas about it, and it was about mental health. And I it was just so interesting to see the different generation between the two of us, and how that affected how we wanted to handle the situation. And we sat there for like an hour just having this talk about like how I saw mental health and how I think it should be handled and how I think it should be addressed. And he had a very different um, feeling about it. And it wasn't a bad feeling. He wasn't wrong or anything like that. It was just we both felt very differently about the process that needed to happen for someone to heal mentally.
Oh.
And so I just thought that was interesting. After listening to you, I remembered that conversation. I was like, oh my God, I was having that cross generational talk that we're talking about,
Yeah,
not even
and
realizing it.
your brother is the one who in the show.
No, my other
Oh,
brother.
you're okay.
Yeah.
Because that will be a very interesting conversation on this cross generational talk, because it's exactly what I'm talking about. Again, there are things you are from in the same family, and this is what happens. And you know that in society, your work, or maybe in college, in other parts, you find people that if he was not your brother, for example, what happened at the end, and you continue to have many differences in different topics, then you just part ways with that person, right? You, okay, bye. But with family, we had to like, okay, but it happens because family is not perfect, or family does not have to think the way you think. Because when you were growing up, like you say, you have a very different years with gap between your brothers. They were understanding life differently. Like, for example, I think you're a millennial, and we're talking here cross-generational talk. So we know baby boomers, they were born until 64 or 46, 64. Then my generation, which is sandwich X generation, is until 65 to 79. Then millennials is from the 80 to 94. And then Gen Z, 95 to 12. And now I think it's Alpha, the new generation. So what happened? Millennials are digital native, native digital. Correct me, if I'm wrong.
Digital,
But
yeah, you got it.
well, okay. So you were born with Facebook, or well, Facebook came maybe after, but you were born with computers and different things that we were not. I had mentioned, and I don't know if it was to you, that someone that I know said, "Oh, in my country, we went to the mountain and did some drugs, but nobody knew." But right now, you really have to post it in a Snapchat because nobody's gonna see it, or in TikTok, or because, but at the end, you get, because people then start the cyberbullying and definitions of your personality because you did this drug, or I don't know, you did many things that we all do things in life. But again, the thing I had to say it the way I think, because it's the only way I know, that the disadvantage is that you were having a TV channel portraying your life all the time. And not just millennials, obviously Gen Z is worse. I mean, when I say worse, obviously it has a lot of advantages. So again, that the technology, and we can talk about that or expand on that in another episode, or with someone else. But I think that's what make us, like maybe your brother and you were different generations, and you were dealing with different things in high school, in elementary. And as I always say, we are four sisters with my mother, and the four of us are different. I just have one daughter, but I have seen, and thanks God I know this, all my aunts, and they have different kids, two, three. My mother had four, and we are all different, and my mother is the same. And again, it's like you were saying, your reaction or your sister's reaction to what you live is different. Your sister, you said, is sadness, and yours is anger. And at the end, is like me, or nobody should try to ask the other person to think like they think, because we are all different. So this is cross-generational talk.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to ask you, because we kind of already touched on it a little bit, but I do feel like my generation were very open to talking about mental health or emotional health, and seeking help for our emotional health, even if it doesn't seem drastic on the outside. Like, somebody looking in might not think that somebody needs help emotionally. But a lot of us do seek that help. And I think we all, at least from my experience, that a lot of people my age feel really comfortable in doing that, in looking for help. But from the people that I know that are not in my generation, they seem to have a little bit more of a struggle with that.
Yeah.
Is Have you noticed that as well?
Oh, completely. At least in my case, and in different cases. But let me ask you this. Have you had, because you mentioned in the other episodes too about your therapies and how you even inspire other people, have you gone to different therapies and chosen and say, no, this is not working, this one is not working, or you found the first therapist and you stay with him or her?
So I've gone to therapy and stopped going multiple times. So when I believe I was when I was really young, I went to therapy for a little bit. And I think I only went a few times, and then I stopped. And then when I when I was a sophomore in college, I went back, and I went to one therapist, and he was helpful, but it seemed like he just wanted to push me into group therapy. He didn't want me to
Mhm.
sit and talk with him one on one all the time. He immediately wanted me to go to group therapy.
Mhm.
So I did. I went to group therapy for a little bit, and it just wasn't for me. It didn't feel as helpful as I wanted it to feel.
Mhm.
So after that, I didn't go back for years. I think almost maybe 8 to 10 years went by,
Mhm.
and I like dealt with my struggles by myself, and I
Mhm.
thought I was handling them, and then I hit a breaking point one day, and I realized that I hadn't been handling them at all.
Mhm.
um, so I got a list of therapists that were approved by my insurance, and the first one that answered my call, I went to her and I connected with her immediately, and I have been seeing her ever since. And it's been over 2 years now.
Mhm.
But she's been like the best thing. She's amazing.
Yeah,
So
wow.
I lucked out, I think, with her. I know a lot of people struggle in finding the person that they feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I did find that in her, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, and I asked you this, and I'm sorry, I know that I didn't want to. I think I responded. My generation maybe didn't see it the same. I don't know. I know what I see, and as a psychologist, again, I studied that, and I had a psychology when I was getting divorced. And I had Kimberly, my daughter was 8 years old or something like that, and it was because the divorce court sent us, and so she had a therapist. I had a therapy for 3 months, and for me, I think both therapists they were really great. I really was needing that help, but after that, I never, maybe because of the way that I am, or how do I look for solutions. And that's the first thing. When there's a huge problem or a small problem, my thing is always solution. That's why I love to be a producer. But this is the thing. Kimberly, for example, and also my friend, my best friend, my best friend, she always recommended, okay, if you don't like this therapist, you just go to another one, don't stay. Because I remember one time my daughter said, oh, mommy, I don't want to go. And that was coming back from college, and she needed a therapist, but she didn't want to continue because her therapist was looking at the clock all the time. And I
Mhm.
remember that when I was married, a couple therapist was the same. She was like, okay, now I'm gonna charge the $100, the $200. So yeah. So it was saying, that was my experience in one case when I was married, but with my daughter, I remember. My thing is that a therapist, and I'm so glad to hear that you are so happy with yours, and that's the way it should be, and because
Mhm.
you know that is helping you. But when you go to a person, it could be your therapist, it could be your best friend, it could be
Mhm.
your mother or your sister, and you are looking for them to respond what you need to. And I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking that many people go to a therapist to listen to things that they know.
Mhm.
If if that therapist tells them, and the therapist, is telling them what they know they want to hear at the
Mhm.
end. And this is what I'm going to say, and again, this is my thinking. Remember, this could be a controversial thing, and we have talked with Carly about this, and we're open-minded, we accept everything. And
Absolutely.
my thinking is that, even with my best friend, again, I I love her so much that I'm not gonna tell her things just because I know she wants to hear those things.
Mhm.
And one of the things again is that, a therapist, that's her work, and that's again my thinking and my experiences. And Maria Elena, for example, the psychologist that we've had, and I think I had someone else also that told me, and even Judah, again, I keep recommending listening to Judah's episode. When he realizes that it was him, that doesn't mean, if because Rossy could have someone to speak to every week, and that would be great. But when I realized that it's on me, I remember there's a phrase that said, psychologists say, oh, when my client knows that, she graduates is when she knows that it's on her. That doesn't mean I'm not gonna blame my mother or my father, or I'm not gonna claim this what happened to me, because obviously there are terrible things that happen to us. But at the end is, what do I do? Because
Mm-hmm.
what we have is today, right? And yes,
Mm-hmm.
we had a terrible past maybe, or we don't know what's in the future, but that's what causes depression and anxiety. So what we have is today. And when that person realizes on working on today without blaming others, but to really focusing on themselves, and knowing that again, we had relationships in a house, and all those siblings were living different realities. So that is why, again, Rossy, my therapy again is always gonna be I'm not gonna say this because I can go again to a therapist. I don't have any problem. I don't think nothing is bad. No, nothing is bad. So I don't have problem going to a therapist. What I know it works for me is putting my tennis shoes after this conversation with you, Carly, and going to walk and taking pictures of the Christmas thing. So that really, but it's not that works for me. It's that the dopamine that we really, and that's a chemical thing. And that's what I want
Mm-hmm.
to bring experts again, because this is not an invention, Rossy's invention. Is if you do exercise, one of the things, and this is maybe, as I said, I talk too much, but if that we can go and maybe ask what are the things I'm going to ask you, and you can say if this is the last part, but what are the things that you do that work for your emotional and mental well-being?
So I have to start by saying I totally agree that there's so many things that work for people that don't work for others. And I feel like we sometimes we try and like make people like, no, no, this worked, like you should do it. And it doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody can do the same things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree with you. But what I do is obviously I go to therapy. And that's probably been the biggest thing for me. But what's come out of that is that my sessions, we don't necessarily play the blame game. I'm not I did it first when I went in there. I was trying to blame everybody else for why I was feeling the way I was feeling. But the most important thing that I try and remember and is that I can only control me. I cannot
Mm-hmm.
control the people around me. And if they're doing things that are hurting me, that's on them and it's not something I can control. What I can do is how I react to it or how I avoid it or how I remove myself from the situation.
Yeah,
Um,
perfect.
so that's been really helpful for me is to just think, okay, I can't sit here and dwell on what somebody else did and how I want to fix that person because I can't fix that person. I can fix how I feel about it. I can fix how I have that involved in my life. I can do all of that. But that person's problems are that person's problems and they need to figure it out themselves. Um,
Yeah.
but on top of that, this might sound a little cheesy, but actually the thing that I would say probably saved my life is actually my dog. I
Oh,
I
oh,
got him when I was at my lowest point, and people can say what they want about emotional support animals, but I am living proof that they do the work.
oh my
He's
God.
he's not certified, he's not trained in it, but I swear this dog knows me more than like anybody else. The second as I'm sad, he is next to me with his paw on me, like
Oh,
calming me down. He's the best thing. And then other than that, I just surround myself with people that are positive people and that I feel like I can go to. My best friend, I can call her anytime, any day, crying hysterically, and she is there and she knows what to say. She will almost always just make me laugh and we'll move forward, and she's there to help me. But also just spending time on myself. It's been hard. Even recently, it's been hard to find the time to
mm,
focus on myself, even if it's just 10-15 minutes a day. But finding that time is really important. And even if it's just sitting by yourself in a room to breathe for 10 minutes without talking, without looking at a screen, without listening to anything, it does a lot for the brain just to sit there and not worry or stress and try to get your mind to not focus on the things that are bringing you down every day. um,
yeah. Oh,
but yeah,
wow. Those
that's
recommendations. Yeah, please pay attention because that's great.
Oh, thank you, Rossy. And thank you so much for being here and having this meaningful and thoughtful conversation with me. I do think it's so important to have these conversations and to have them in a respectful and understanding way as well, where we're open to hearing each other's thoughts and the different perspectives on it.
Yeah, exactly. I thank you because really just understanding my passion. And, we all grow. It's like, I don't know if I was asking you or someone else, we have different goals through the years. And that's why a person who wanted to be an attorney, maybe. Okay, I'm going away. But anyway, so I am so passionate about bringing different realities and understanding each other, meaning we don't have to. Two of my best friends or people that I love in Florida and in here, by the way, one of my neighbors, he is a follower of Trump. I'm gonna say that. If you know me, you know that I am not a supporter of him. And I have such a great time with them, and I love them. I have a great time again with my neighbor, and when we talk about that topic, I say, well, you know that we agree to disagree, right? So we can move on. So that's what I want to do with everything, not just with politics, but with everything, because we can think differently. We can see the same thing in a different way. The most important thing for me is that we love ourselves first, and then we respect others. Obviously, if we respect others, and responsibility is the ability to respond, and if we can respond to others the way that we want others to respond to us, that's great. And I really love the things that you said that you do, and that is great. Again, for me it's the same. I think, Carly, if we I love myself, and right now I'm single, and I have to say, I didn't have to say that, but I am saying it just because people sometimes look for a partner just because they need the love. And I love
Mhm.
myself. I go hiking by myself, and I go to a restaurant or even to watch movie by myself. So I really want that person that is coming to be in love with himself. So we can,
Mhm.
not be looking for, okay, I want that person to love me and accept me and approve me. And then if I fight with others, he's gonna be there just to listen to me and to do what I want. No, I want someone really that loves himself. Again, so this has been a cross-generational talks. Carly's gonna continue with them. She's, again, I'm so happy that you are here, Carly, and leading this podcast. So thank you so much for that. And then Rossy's gonna, not talk too much. And in the Spanish episode, she's gonna bring a specialist, a psychologist. So thank you, Carly.
Thank you, Rossy. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody listening. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and join our weekly newsletter where you can keep up with us. And you can also join in on the conversation. We'd love to hear from you guys. We love hearing different thoughts and perspectives on things, as you've heard throughout this episode. But we will talk to you all soon.